She didn't raise her voice when the beer hit her table. Didn't flinch when the amber liquid arced through the dim bar light and splashed across her fries. Didn't even glance up when the laughter started loud and careless from the group of Marines 3 tables over. Commander Alina Graves just set down her water glass, picked up a napkin, and began dabbing at the spill with the kind of methodical precision that comes from years of controlling exactly what the world gets to see. Because the woman in the corner booth wasn't there to drink. She wasn't there to socialize. She was there to observe. And the 4 men who just made her their joke had no idea they were being evaluated by the one person who would decide whether they ever wore the patch that mattered. The lights inside Anchor Point Tavern always ran a little too dim, like the place had made peace with being forgotten by everyone except the people who needed it. It sat just off Route 76 outside Naval Station San Diego, wedged between a tire shop that closed at 5 and a pawnbroker who never seemed to open at all. The walls were dark wood, scarred with decades of initials and inside jokes that nobody remembered anymore. The jukebox in the corner had been broken since 2018. The floor had that soft give that comes from years of spilled beer and boot scuff and the weight of 1,000 conversations that nobody wanted overheard. There was no dress code, no live music, no questions asked, which is why it was always full by 2,000 hours. The woman at the corner table didn't look like she belonged, at least not at first glance. Dark gray hoodie, black cargo pants, no patches, no unit pride, no jewelry, no makeup, no alcohol in front of her, just water with a lemon wedge and a basket of fries she hadn't touched in 20 minutes. She sat with her back to the wall, not to the door. A subtle distinction most people missed. The kind of choice that separates those who've been trained from those who've been tested. The door swung open, hard, hinges protesting, and 4 men entered like they owned the oxygen in the room. Tan camouflage uniforms, sleeves half rolled at the elbows, chest pockets sagging from too many hours in field rotation. Their boots were dusty, their laughs louder than necessary. Not locals, not regulars, temporary. The kind of men whose assignments gave them just enough time to grow cocky, but not long enough to learn humility. They took the high-top table near the center of the bar. The tallest one, broad-shouldered with a jawline that looked like it had been carved for propaganda posters, waved Ray down with 2 fingers and a smirk. "Rounds for the table," he said. "Top shelf. Let's make it a welcome party." The 4th had already noticed the woman. 10 o'clock, he muttered. "Solo table. Civilian, maybe contractor." The tall one shrugged. "Ghost program, probably. Someone's ex." A round of laughter. Not mean yet. Just lazy, confident, curious in the way young wolves are before they test the pack. Commander Alina Graves had been in this bar for 40 minutes. 40 minutes of watching the television above the bar cycle through muted news. 40 minutes of not touching her fries. 40 minutes of letting her mind run through the files she'd memorized that afternoon. Corporal Garrett Sutherland, 28, Marine Recon, 2 deployments, Iraq and Afghanistan. Solid marks in field leadership, marginal marks in team cohesion, flagged twice for insubordination, both times dismissed after peer testimony. The kind of operator who got results but left friction in his wake. Corporal Deacon Cross, 26. Communications specialist, high technical scores, nervous under live fire conditions. Psych Evil noted anxiety management issues, recommended for additional stress inoculation training but never received it. Private Hollis Tamain, 25, field medic. Competent, quiet, no disciplinary record, no commendations either. The kind of operator who disappeared into the middle of every formation. Lance Corporal Owen Briggs, 30. Oldest of the group, former Force Recon, downgraded after shoulder injury. Father was career military, Iraq 2003. Psych notes indicated high situational awareness, low tolerance for incompetence. She knew their records, she knew their scores, but she didn't know how they moved when nobody was grading them. Didn't know what they said when they thought command wasn't listening. Didn't know if they had the kind of judgment that couldn't be taught in a schoolhouse. That's why she was here. Off duty, out of uniform, invisible. Admiral James Keller had given her 72 hours to evaluate them for integration into Joint Special Operations. Task Force 7. 72 hours to decide if these 4 Marines could function alongside Navy SEALs. Army Special Forces, Air Force Pararescue, and every other high-speed unit that didn't tolerate weakness or ego or the kind of recklessness that got people killed. By the third round, the volume of the group had doubled. One of them started doing impressions of bad CO voice barking nonsense orders. Another spun a story about a helicopter insertion gone sideways in the Hindu Kush. Clearly embellished, pauses timed for maximum effect. But it wasn't the noise that mattered. It was the moment one of them, the tall one, Sutherland, turned from the table to gesture with his beer. He swung wide, trying to punctuate the punchline of a joke nobody outside their circle would understand. His elbow high, his boot catching the side of a loose chair leg behind him, off balance for just half a second. Just long enough for his pint glass to tip. Amber liquid arced clean through the air, splashed across her table. Half her fries were soaked. The water glass tipped but didn't fall. A line of beer ran across the tabletop, dripping slowly into her lap. For a moment, the bar paused just enough to clock the moment, just enough to decide whether this was going to be a thing or not. Then came the laughter. Sutherland turned, saw the mess, and held both palms up. "Whoa, my bad. That one's on the chair, not me." The others howled. "Damn thing moved on its own," the one with the nervous leg said. "Maybe it's her fault," another added. "What's she doing sitting that close to a combat zone anyway?" The woman Elena Graves, Commander, United States Navy. SEAL Team 11 calmly set her napkin down, picked up her water glass, shifted it back into place. Then began dabbing her lap without urgency, without expression, without even glancing in their direction. That rattled them more than it should have. It was Cross who stood first. He did it casually, carrying his fresh drink with theatrical care. Like he was trying not to spill it again, grinning at his friends as he meandered toward her side of the bar. "Truce drink?" he offered, holding it out. She didn't look up. He held the glass a little higher, looming just near her elbow. "Least I can do after nearly drowning your fries." She glanced at the glass. It was sweating already. A small droplet traced down the side, pooling on her coaster. "No thank you," she said. Not rude, not defensive, just final. He set the glass down anyway, right on the edge of her table. And when she didn't touch it, didn't even flinch, he leaned closer. "You're kind of a mystery. You know that?" From behind him, Sutherland called out, "Careful, Cross. She might be CIA. Could be profiling all of us right now." "Could be," Cross said, grinning wider. "I always thought I had good bone structure for a file photo." Then, casually far to casually, he bumped the drink forward, tipped. Not violently, not obviously. Just enough to send a slow wash of whiskey across her table. Over the napkin she'd just folded, pooling at the edge before dripping off and soaking the cuff of her sleeve. The table roared with laughter. She still didn't react. Just stared at the spreading stain like it was the most unoriginal thing she'd seen all day. Ray froze behind the bar. Could feel him weighing the moment, how far to step in without making it worse. She calmly stood. Her chair didn't scrape. She moved it with control, not retreat. Took 2 steps sideways, lifted the edge of her jacket to shake off the moisture, then turned not to them, but to the other side of the bar. There was an open 2-top near the wall. She crossed the floor and sat down, this time with her back to the room. But before she did, she said it. Just one sentence, over her shoulder, soft, even. "You should have spilled the first drink better." This one made it too obvious. The laughter stopped. Cross blinked. "What?" She didn't repeat it. I didn't need to. At the table, Sutherland leaned in. "Wait, what did she just say?" "Something about the first drink," Cross muttered, suddenly less confident. "No," said the quietest of them, Briggs, his brows knit together. "She said we made it obvious." They looked at each other, suddenly unsure if this was still funny. Suddenly aware that the woman they'd been mocking hadn't reacted the way anyone ever reacted. Not with anger, not with embarrassment, with assessment. Outside in the parking lot, Elena Graves stood beside her truck, the night air cool against her skin. She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small digital recorder, clicked it off. 43 minutes of audio. Every word, every laugh, every moment of disrespect, escalation, and poor judgment. She opened the voice memo app on her phone and began logging her assessment. Corporal Garrett Sutherland, impulsive, seeks dominance through volume, needs to prove authority in every interaction, potential for leadership if ego can be managed. recommend isolation training and direct accountability measures. She paused, replayed the moment he'd called her sweetheart, flagged for dismissive language toward unknown contacts, indicative of broader respect issues. Corporal Deacon Cross. Insecure escalates to prove worth to peers. Follow Sutherland's lead without independent judgment. Anxiety markers visible under mild social pressure. Recommend stress inoculation and decision-making autonomy exercises. Private Hollis domain. Follower. No independent action observed. Laughed when others laughed. Stopped when others stopped. Neutral presence requires structure and clear chain of command. Potentially reliable if properly led. Lance Corporal Owen Briggs. Only member of group to exhibit situational awareness. Did not participate in second spill. Observed rather than escalated. Other Force Recon Iraq 2003. Background suggests trained perception. Recommend further evaluation. Potential. She saved the file, encrypted it, sent it to her personal server. Then she stood there for a moment, looking back at the bar, the lights inside warm and hazy through the windows. The sound of laughter muffled, but persistent. She thought about walking back inside, about showing them her ID, about watching their faces drain of color when they realized exactly who they'd just disrespected. But that wasn't the play. The play was patience. The play was 72 hours. Play was watching them unravel under the weight of their own choices, in front of the entire base, in front of their peers, in front of the one person whose evaluation would follow them for the rest of their careers. She climbed into her truck, started the engine, and drove back toward the base. Tomorrow morning, 0630, Joint Operations Briefing Room, they'd find out who she was. And by tomorrow night, they'd understand what it cost them. At 0600 hours, the admin wing of Naval Station San Diego buzzed with the kind of quiet efficiency that only military installations ever managed. Everything smelled like strong coffee and burnt toner. The readiness briefing room wasn't built to intimidate, but it always managed to. Square windowless, painted the exact shade of gray that made everything inside feel 1 decibel quieter. Corporal Garrett Sutherland swaggered in first. Uniform not quite pressed, boots passable, demeanor unbothered. Behind him came Cross, T-Main, and Briggs, all wearing the same mild hangover masked as overconfidence. Guess this is where they tell us to play nice with the Navy boys, Cross muttered. Tossing his field folder onto the table like it owed him something, T-Main smirked. Maybe we're getting medals. Briggs didn't speak. Then the side door opened. No fanfare, no announcement, just boots on linoleum. Lieutenant Commander Elena Graves walked in. Full uniform, trident gleaming like it had never been touched by dirt. Command patch visible on her left shoulder. Shoulders relaxed, eyes already scanning the room as if she'd been standing in it before they ever arrived. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Sutherland froze mid-comment. His eyes flicked to her face, and something behind his grin started to decay. Cross blinked once, then again. His legs stopped bouncing. Pain whispered, "No way." Briggs leaned forward slowly, as if by leaning he could undo last night. Graves walked to the center of the room and set a single folder on the table. Her hands moved without flourish. She stood behind the chair at the head of the table but didn't sit. "Good morning," she said. One sentence and the room stilled. Today's session is a joint operational integrity evaluation. Cross-unit behavior and cohesion are under direct review for upcoming task force assignments. She didn't raise her voice, but the temperature dropped 10 degrees. She looked directly at Sutherland. He swallowed once. Then she glanced at TNA, then Cross, one by one. No emotion, no theatrics. Just recognition, like she wasn't introducing herself at all. Just confirming what they already should have known. A ripple of whispers passed down the row of SEALs in the back. Someone exhaled softly and whispered, "Oh damn, it's her." No one said a word after that. And for the first time since they walked in, Corporal Garrett Sutherland sat up straight like he couldn't quite remember how tall he was supposed to be. Graves continued without pause. The operational circuit isn't complicated. 12 stations, 4-member teams. Each task pulled from real-world scenarios. Field radio calibration under noise jamming. Rapid gear reassembly blindfolded. Evac protocol drill under false fire alarm. Simulated civilian interaction with conflicting rules of engagement. She set the folder down and looked at them again. It's not designed to punish. but it punishes arrogance all the same. Her voice remained conversational, clinical like a surgeon reading vital signs. Team 3, she said calmly. Corporal Sutherland, Corporal Cross, Lance Corporal Briggs, Private Tamain, Station 6. They stood slower than before. Be advised, she continued. This is a personnel prioritization drill. 3 hostiles, 2 unarmed civilians, 1 wounded ally. 5-minute window. Command decisions logged on audio. Sutherland grinned, trying to summon what little bravado he had left. We've run this scenario before, ma'am. Graves glanced up, not at him, through him. Then you'll be familiar with what failure looks like. No smile, just clinical acknowledgement. The timer beeped. They started the drill. 2 minutes in, Cross misidentified the wounded ally and flagged him as hostile. Tamain hesitated, then overcorrected, neutralizing one of the civilians with a training rifle. Sutherland began arguing mid-scenario, voice rising, trying to override Cross's call. Briggs tried to regroup them, but his voice cracked under the pressure of Sutherland's volume. 4 minutes in, the alarm buzzed. Graves clicked her pen. Failure, she said. Ma'am, we had conflicting data on the civilian, Sutherland began. She cut him off without looking up. It had conflicting ego. The room went still. Graves continued without pause. The operational circuit isn't complicated. 12 stations, 4-member teams. Each task pulled from real-world scenarios. Field radio calibration under noise jamming. Rapid gear reassembly blindfolded. Evac protocol drill under false fire alarm. Simulated civilian interaction with conflicting rules of engagement. She set the folder down and looked at them again. It's not designed to punish, but it punishes arrogance all the same. Her voice remained conversational, clinical like a surgeon reading vital signs. Team 3, she said calmly. Corporal Sutherland, Corporal Cross, Lance Corporal Briggs, Private Tamain, Station 6. They stood slower than before. Be advised, she continued. This is a personnel prioritization drill. 3 hostiles, 2 unarmed civilians, 1 wounded ally. 5-minute window. Command decisions logged on audio. Sutherland grinned, trying to summon what little bravado he had left. We've run this scenario before, ma'am. Graves glanced up, not at him, through him. Then you'll be familiar with what failure looks like. No smile, just clinical acknowledgement. The timer beeped. They started the drill. 2 minutes in, Cross misidentified the wounded ally and flagged him as hostile. Tamain hesitated, then overcorrected, neutralizing one of the civilians with a training rifle. Sutherland began arguing mid-scenario, voice rising, trying to override Cross's call. Briggs tried to regroup them, but his voice cracked under the pressure of Sutherland's volume. 4 minutes in, the alarm buzzed. Graves clicked her pen. Failure, she said. Ma'am, we had conflicting data on the civilian, Sutherland began. She cut him off without looking up. It had conflicting ego. The room went still. At 0500 the next morning, the Pacific Ocean was black and cold and unforgiving. The kind of cold that didn't care about rank or reputation or how confident you'd been 24 hours ago. Commander Graves stood on the beach in full wetsuit, arms crossed, watching for Marines wade into the surf with the kind of reluctance that told her everything she needed to know about how their night had gone. Full gear, she'd said at the brief. 1 hour cold water conditioning. If you fall behind, the ocean doesn't wait. Sutherland had tried to make eye contact with his team, tried to rally them with some platitude about toughing it out, but his voice had been hollow. The weight of yesterday's failure still hung on him like wet canvas. Now they were in it, waist deep, chest deep, waves rolling over their heads every 20 seconds. Graves walked the shoreline, calm, dry, watching. She didn't yell encouragement, didn't bark orders, just observed. Sutherland struggled, pride wouldn't let him quit, but his breath came ragged. Cross vomited twice seawater, and bile kept going anyway. Tamain went hypothermic at the 90-minute mark, lips blue, hands shaking. Briggs stayed close to him, helping him stay upright. That's when Graves's radio crackled. Commander Graves, this is Station Ops. We have an emergency beacon. Fishing vessel taking water 2 miles offshore. 3 crew. Coast Guard ETA 20 minutes. Vessel has 10. Graves didn't hesitate. She keyed the radio, acknowledged. Closest assets? Jar map. She looked at the 4 men in the water, exhausted, cold, barely functional. Then she made the call. Sutherland, she shouted over the surf. Get your team to shore now. They staggered out, confused, shivering. She met them at the waterline, fishing vessels sinking 2 miles out. 3 crew. Coast Guard is 20 minutes away. The boat has 10. We're the closest asset. Sutherland blinked, water streaming down his face. Ma'am, we're not qualified. You're qualified if I say you are. Graves cut him off. This is your evaluation, real world, real stakes, go or fail, your call. For 3 seconds, Sutherland didn't move, didn't breathe. Then he looked at his team, Cross, still pale from vomiting, tained, hypothermic and shaking. At Briggs, the only one still standing straight. We go, Sutherland said. Graves nodded once, then listen to every word I say and execute exactly as ordered. Understood? Yes, ma'am, they swam. Graves commanded from the support boat, voice steady over the radio, directing their approach. Sutherland followed her orders to the letter. No improvisation, no cowboy moves. Just execution. Cross-handled comes under pressure, relaying coordinates to Coast Guard, with hands so cold he could barely key the mic. Briggs applied first aid to an injured crew member. Hypothermia be damned, fingers working through the shakes. Taman overcame his fear, dove twice for a trapped crew member wedged in the cabin as the boat lifted 30 degrees. All 3 crew recovered. The vessel sank as they cleared the hull. Coast Guard arrived 4 minutes later to find them floating in a raft, exhausted, bloody, victorious. Good work, the Coast Guard petty officer called over. Who led this? Graves, pulling herself into the support boat, looked at the 4 Marines. They did, she said. I observed. At 1900 hours, she took them to the memorial wall. A long corridor in the east wing, names etched in black granite, faces and photographs, dates, units. Some with medals pinned beside them, some with flowers still fresh. She stopped in front of one name. Petty Officer Daniel Rohr, SEAL Team 11, Kia Kandahar 2011. My swim buddy, Graves said. Bud, S-Class 301, killed 14 years ago. The 4 Marines stood silent. I was a junior officer, she continued. We were tasked with breaching a compound. High-value target. I recommended a different breach point. Saw the terrain, saw the approach. Knew the enemy would expect frontal assault. She paused, touched the photograph. Rohr, smiling in his dress uniform. I'm confident. Senior SEAL commander overruled me, told me to leave tactics to those with experience. Said, Dan, I quote, "Sweetheart, you worry about comes. Let the men handle the breach." Sutherland's jaw tightened. His plan was exactly what the enemy expected, Graves said. Frontal assault. No surprises. I'd triggered the moment we entered. Rohr was on point. He died instantly. She turned to look at them. I was calm that day too. Too calm. Too afraid to push back harder. Too worried about proving I deserved to be there. It cost him his life. Cross spoke, voice barely above a whisper. That's why you're so hard on us. No, Graves said. I'm hard on you because I see potential. If I didn't, I would have failed you on day 1. She let that sit. But you need to understand something. Every decision you make in the field, every moment you let ego override judgment, every time you think the rules don't apply to you, you're not just risking yourself, you're risking the person next to you, the person who trusted you, the person whose family will get a folded flag because you needed to feel important. At 2,200 hours, they walked across the tarmac toward the C-130. The night air was cool, the plane's engines already spinning, turbines winding up to pitch. 5 figures in full kit, moving with purpose. Admiral James Keller had given them a mission. Intel from Syria. American journalists captured by militia forces. 72-hour window before execution video. Requires immediate foreman team plus SEAL command. Wheels up in 6 hours, Keller had said. Sir, we just qualified today, Sutherland had replied. Graves had turned to him. You ready? Question is, do you trust that? Sutherland had looked at his team. At Cross, who'd overcome panic. At Taman, who'd found courage. At Briggs, who'd been steady the whole time. Then he'd looked at Graves as the woman they'd disrespected, the woman who'd broken them down and built them back, the woman who'd given them a chance when she could have destroyed them. We trust you, ma'am, he'd said. The jump went perfectly. Halo insertion. High altitude, low opening, 8 kilometers to target compound, 4 hours to extraction. The plan didn't survive first contact with the enemy. Intel had been wrong. 23 thermal signatures instead of 12. The journalist was in the main building, but there was a second high-value targetan, ISIS regional commander, in a separate building. 2 objectives. Not enough time for both. Graves did something she'd learned from Harav years ago. She asked, "Sutherland, if this was your call, what would you do?" Sutherland was quiet for 10 seconds. Then he spoke, voice steady. "We split. Briggs and Temain extract the journalist fast and quiet. You, me, and Cross go for the commander. 2-minute window. Simultaneous breach. If we time it right, the confusion works for both teams." Graves watched him. "It's not in any manual now, ma'am," Sutherland said. "But you taught us to adapt." She smiled. Small, brief. "Execute your plan, Corporal." Everything went according to plan until it didn't. The objectives were secured, both the journalist and the ISIS commander. But Graves took a round to the plate carrier during extraction. The impact knocked her down, drove the air from her lungs. The hostiles advanced, then gunfire from a different angle, precise, controlled. Sutherland appeared, rifle up, firing, Cross behind him, covering. They'd come back. Ignored her order, came back for her. "Can you move, ma'am?" Sutherland asked, pulling her to her feet. She nodded, couldn't speak yet, lungs still screaming. Then we moved. Now they ran. Behind them, the compound erupted into full alert. Searchlights, sirens, the sound of vehicles starting, but they'd made it to the perimeter, into the darkness. The helicopter came in low and fast. Black Hawk, door gunners ready. Inside, Graves sat against the bulkhead, breathing hard, ribs on fire where the plate had caught the round. Sutherland sat across from her, covered in dust and blood, none of it his. "You came back," she said. "Yes, ma'am." "I ordered you to go." "Yes, ma'am." "You disobeyed a direct order." Sutherland met her eyes. "You taught us that leadership means getting your people home. All of them. Couldn't leave you behind." Graves stared at him, then at Cross, at Briggs and Temain. She wanted to be angry, should have been angry, but all she felt was pride. "That was incredibly stupid, Corporal." "Yes, ma'am," Sutherland said.
Ow.
"But it worked." She almost smiled. "Next time, follow orders." "Will there be a next time, ma'am?" "Bedows." Graves looked out the open door at the Syrian desert falling away below them. "We'll see." 48 hours later, Naval Station San Diego was bright and loud and felt like a different planet. Graves walked into the medical bay, out of uniform, civilian clothes. She looked almost normal, except for the way she moved carefully, protecting her ribs. Commander Sutherland said, starting to stand. "Stay seated," she said. "This is off the record." She pulled up a chair, sat with them. "The journalist is stateside. Full recovery expected. He's talking to media. The HVT is in custody. Intel estimates his capture will prevent at least 3 planned attacks. Higher command is pleased." She paused. "You should know that Admiral Keller has authorized permanent assignment for all 4 of you to Task Force 7, effective immediately." They didn't react at first, then the weight of it hit. "Ma'am," Cross said quietly, "after how we treated you?" Graves looked at him. "You treated a stranger badly, and you grew. That's what matters. The military doesn't need people who never fail. It needs people who fail, learn, and become better." Sutherland leaned forward, wincing at his ribs. "Ma'am, I have to know. That first night at the bar did. You know Cross was going to spill that second drink?" Graves was quiet for a moment. "I knew when he approached. Body language, trajectory, intent. The question wasn't whether he would. It was how you'd all react after. You were testing us the whole time. I was assessing you. Testing implies pass or fail. Assessment is watching what people do when they think nobody's judging, then deciding if they can be trained. You could." 2 months later, Anchor Point Tavern looked exactly the same. Same dim lights, same broken jukebox, same old bartender wiping the same stretch of bar. Elena Graves sat at her corner table. Back to the wall, water with lemon, fresh fries. The door opened. 4 men entered. Not loud this time, respectful. They nodded to Ray at the bar. He nodded back. Then they saw her. Sutherland approached the table. "Commander, mind if we join you?" Graves gestured to the empty chairs. Operational or social? Social, ma'am. If that's allowed, sit. They did. Ordered drinks. Or in Sutherland, got water. Growth. For a few minutes, they just sat. Comfortable silence. The kind that comes after shared experience. Graves reached into her pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside, 4 pins. Different from the integration badges, these were older, personal. Harov gave me mine 15 years ago in this bar. After I failed pool comp for the 3rd time but kept trying, said it was tradition. Pass it forward when you find people worth the investment. She handed them out, small trident pins. Not official, personal. It's a kind that meant more than any medal. You've earned these, not for what you did in Syria. It's for what you became in 3 days. For asking the hard questions. For admitting when you were wrong. For coming back for me when you could have left. Sutherland held his, looked at it, then at her. Ma'am, we can never repay this. You don't repay it, Graves said. You pass it on. Lead the next ones the way I led you. Make them better than you were. That's the tradition. 6 months later, new Marines entered Anchor Point. Young, loud, cocky. One of them gestured too widely, knocked over a drink. It splashed toward a corner table where a woman sat alone. Sutherland and Cross were at the bar, off-duty, civilian clothes. They saw it happen. Should we tell them? Sutherland asked quietly. Cross watched the woman calmly dab at the spill, reorganize her table. She wore a gray hoodie, no patches, no unit pride, just water and fries. She was new, not Graves. Different evaluator, same methodology. No, Cross said. Let them learn. The woman stood, moved to a different table, and as she passed the Marines, she said something too quiet for Sutherland and Cross to hear. But they saw the Marines' faces change, saw the moment they realized they'd made a mistake. Cross smiled. The cycle continues. Yeah, Sutherland said. It does. 3 years later, Commander Elena Graves stood at the same memorial wall. The names had multiplied. 8 new faces, new losses. But Rohr's photograph remained unchanged, smiling in his dress uniform. She wasn't alone this time. Sutherland stood beside her now, a staff sergeant training his own team. Ma'am, Sutherland said quietly, the new integration class starts tomorrow. 12 Marines,